May I now invite Dr. Naga Chalasani to kindly come up, and it will probably be on the same lines of the new molecules in MASH cirrhosis. So Dr. Naga, we are waiting, Chalasani, for your talk.
Thank you once again. I'm between you and lunch. I have 8 minutes, so let me zip through. So this is the outline. We'll talk about number of cirrhosis trials that we have conducted. Then we'll touch on what are the ongoing trials and the preliminary readout of 2 recent cirrhosis trials. Exciting, and I think this has been the holy grail. Cirrhosis space has been tough nut to crack, but I think last 2 sets of data I think are promising. And this is a slide showing a number of compounds that have been tested over the course, I would say, 2013 until fairly recently. Dr. Sanyal has been part of almost all of them, and I've been part of many of them as well. To most part, all of them have failed, and this was a lot of heartbreak. Some were small trials, but some were pretty large trials as well. And the reasons for failure, some are just not good compounds, and I think you would agree there were just the efficacy wasn't there for the compound to be tested in cirrhosis, but the trial design in many instances has been a problem. For example, I'll just touch on one thing. In these trials, there was not distinction between child's class A5 versus A6. Their biology is very different. If you want fibrosis reversal, you need to be in the space of child's class A5, where there isn't portal hypertension and where the septa aren't very thick. This is a paper from Eduardo Villar-Gomes showing the natural history of A5 versus A6 is very different. So the trial design, the compounds weren't really sophisticated, and patient selection and the duration of therapy. And there were some trials were done for 6 weeks, for 6 months. You just don't expect cirrhosis to reverse within 6 months, okay? And these are the ongoing trials. Belapectin, I'll share some data with you. Resmetirom, the trial is ongoing. By the way, I've heard one of the speakers saying resmetirom was approved in the US. Let me just make a correction. Resmetirom was approved conditionally. It is a provisional approval. Until resmetirom shows an improvement in clinical outcomes, it will not be fully approved. There is a pathway called FDA has subpart H that is a conditional approval. So we'll touch on the Efruxifermin. I have some slides. There is a trial that we are doing with tocotrienol. This is a Malaysian government-funded study where patients with MELD score between 10 to 14, they're followed up to for 3 years. We are waiting for its readout probably either late this year or next year. This is a single center IU-based, our center. And more recently, survodutide and pegozafermin trials have been initiated. And these are large trials. I suspect these will take up to 29-ish for us to see the results, any readout. So really exciting. Arun has briefly touched on. These are the top-line preliminary week 96 results from phase 2b symmetry trial in compensated cirrhosis due to NASH. So FGF21 was discovered in almost 1999 from a Russian scientist who subsequently actually moved to Indianapolis, where I live, to work for Eli Lilly. He still lives there. Point I'm making is the compound was discovered in 1999. It really took close to 25 years to get to where we are. The same story with saroglitazar. It took 15 plus years to get to a drug that's been marketed. So drug development is a lengthy process with a high failure rate. FGF21 has plethora of positive effects. I'll say one thing though, the dose you need for cross the blood-brain barrier for reduction in alcohol consumption is not anywhere close to what we use in NASH clinical trials. So there is a lot of mixing, what you see in mouse data to humans. So GLP-1 certainly reduce craving. I'm not so sure with FGF21, the doses we give. This is the trial design. The NASH cirrhosis, 2 doses, placebo 28 milligrams and 50 milligrams. There was a biopsy at week 36 that showed some difference. And these are all cirrhotics, by the way. And then week 96 is the readout. Exciting thing is this is, you know, not a massive study, but I think reasonably well powered. And these are the results. What you see on your left is the intention to treat population. In the 50 milligrams dose, there was a nearly 40% reduction in fibrosis by a stage compared to placebo about 15%. This is a placebo-adjusted 25% lowering of fibrosis. The company called that a dramatic reversal of cirrhosis. I'm not so sure. So reversal of cirrhosis may require change in the nodular architecture and some of the vasculature, but nonetheless, this is the first time we have seen this sort of a fairly significant. That is the, what I've shown to your left is the per protocol. The small box is the intention to treat. Same thing, impressive with a 50 milligram dose, and there is a dose effect. And you see the same thing with NASH resolution. There isn't a dose effect, but there is a good, I would say about a 40 percentage points of placebo-adjusted improvement in NASH resolution. So exciting. So you see ELF score, liver stiffness, all suggesting in the same direction. Improvement in ALT, AST. You see an improvement in lipids, triglycerides. Non-HDL cholesterol, HDL goes up about 9 or 10% or so. Overall, even in cirrhotics, the story with Efruxifermin is looking quite compelling. And generally speaking, it is well tolerated, but one word of caution though, FGF21 agonists, the first generation were abandoned both by Lilly and I think by Merck because it has an effect on muscle and bone health. FGF21 is a hepatokine, it is a potent negative muscle regulator. If you do partial hepatectomy during the recovery phase, this I'm talking about in animals, there is muscle atrophy, and one of the primary drivers of that is FGF21. In the trial, the one that I just discussing, there is about a 2 to 3% loss in bone mineral density. So we have to watch what's going to happen to the bone density, and the company is quite diligent. So EKG and other things are pretty safe. So current status of FGF21 agonists in the US, undergoing clinical trial testing. Efruxifermin is by far sort of the lead in terms of in this class of agents. I suspect this will be approved once weekly for non-cirrhotic NASH by 2027. And cirrhotic NASH, of course, needs more testing. But 2B is encouraging results. Last couple slides about Belapectin. This is a compound that I've been very involved in, and I think you may remember the gastro paper that we published about 5 years ago. In a phase 2A, Belapectin is a galectin-3 inhibitor, reduced the development of varices in a subpopulation. The trial was negative, but in a post-hoc analysis, there was a efficacy signal that led to this fairly large trial, 350 plus patients with cirrhosis, clinical portal hypertension, but no varices at baseline were randomized to placebo versus 2 mg per kilo or 4 milligrams per kilo given every 2 weeks intravenous. And bottom line though, I'll show you here, 2 milligram per kilo dose had a significant reduction in the development of varices. The fewer patients developed esophageal varices when they received 2 mg per kilo. And this is about a effect size relative to placebo, about 50% or so. But this is injectable. And typically, Belapectin has not shown improvement in liver fibrosis. This needs to go to phase 3. We will see if the company is interested in taking this forward. Just the clinical takeaways. The past decade, we have seen a number of spectacular failures, really a heartbreak for the companies and patients and investigators. Resmetirom and semaglutide to date have not shown to reverse cirrhosis. but it seems like they prevent the development of cirrhosis. The trials are ongoing. Efruxifermin is sort of the more exciting from the preliminary readout. It reduced fibrosis by a stage in significant number of people at a 50 milligram dose. And Belapectin seems some promise, but we just have to see if the phase 3, the company will go to phase 3. Okay, that's my last slide, and I thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Dr. Naga. I think in the interest of time, we'll just go to the next talk.